Hey everyone! For this video, I just wanted to do a simple craft hoard. Well, I guess it's not technically that simple. It involves sewing and a pattern. But yeah, I thought that I would try to make another backpack. And yeah, I know I've made a lot of backpacks, but with the bat backpack, I really loved it, or I love it, and I use it all the time. But I thought it would be kind of nice to have a backpack. But I thought it would be kind of nice to have a different style of backpack, not one with wings on it. I do love it, but yeah, I don't know. I think I've just kind of fallen in love with the mini backpacks and I just want like a bunch of different styles. So yeah, I was gonna try to make one using the leftover vinyl from the bat backpack and some studs that I've had for like forever. And of course, since I'm gonna be making it, I might as well show you guys how I did it and how you can make one too. Let's go see if I have enough stuff to make one of these backpacks. My fabric right here. Ooh, hopefully it's enough. It's not that much, but yeah, hopefully it's enough. I need some kind of D-rings or something. Let's see. Oh, here are some. And then what I really want, I think, is in this guy. Somewhere in here. So, let's see. Okay, this is one thing that I was looking for. I wanted to put these studs on the bag. They're gold, obviously. That'd be nice if all the hardware matched, but it's a homemade bag, so I think it'll be fine if it's a little mismatched. Now, the only thing about that thing... Oh, there we go. I was going to say, I need the backings, but they're right here. So, perfect. I've gathered vinyl fabric. I've also used this stuff for a different backpack, the bat backpack, and a case for my Invisalign trays. Zippers, a 22-inch zipper, and another that was probably around 10 inches. It was a scrap piece from something else, so I don't quite remember the length. Contact cement, studs. I have these skull ones that I used a long time ago in a studded shoe DIY, a leather hole punch, and a D-ring. So first I made a backpack. Okay, next step. Just kidding. Since the style of this bag is different than what I've done before, I'm going to walk you through how I made it, but I also have a few other backpack tutorials that I'll link to if you like those styles better. You could even start with a store-bought or thrifted bag and skip straight to the studs if you wanted. For this bag, I'm using 1/2-inch seam allowances. So here are all the pieces I cut. For the body, 2 9.5 by 11.5 pieces, rounded at the top corners like so. Then 2 pieces that were 21 by 2 inches for the body zipper, and then 1 piece that was 16 by 3 1/4 inch for the body bottom. For the pocket, you need 1 11 by 4 1/4 piece, another 11 by 6 inch piece, and then 2 1 by 1 inch pieces. And for the straps, you'll need 2 by about 28 inch pieces. For that, I would err on the side of going a little bit longer. If you are unsure, you can always cut off the excess. And then 1 1/2-inch by 12 inch piece, and 2 pieces that are about 1.5 by 2 inches, but cut like this, where the middle bit is 1/2 inch wide. On the long strap pieces, mark the midpoint all the way down to the length. Apply the contact cement and let it sit for about 15 minutes or however long the directions say. Fold the edges in to meet the mid mark and press it down. I actually used this brayer that I have for rolling out ink for printmaking, and it worked pretty well to press everything down. Really, you could just use your hands, but whatever. On these weird shaped pieces, apply glue to these wide edges, like so. Let them sit for a bit, and then, one at a time, thread them onto the D-ring on the flat side, and then press the glue sides together. Repeat for the other piece. Mine were overlapping a bit in the middle, so I just snipped some of that extra fabric off. And then, set it aside. Sew the small 1 by 1 inch pieces of vinyl to the smaller zipper, right sides touching, flip them back, and then overstitch like so. And actually, depending on the length of your zipper, you may need more or less of these vinyl ends. You're looking for the total length of the zipper plus the end bits to be 11 inches to match the pocket piece. You may have noticed, but the zipper I'm using here is quite small. This is the zipper that I initially used and it ended up being too small. It was a pain to open the pocket and get stuff out of it, so I ended up switching to a longer zipper. More on that when I get there. Anyway, place the zipper piece onto one of the pocket piece edges, sew together, flip out, and overstitch along that seam. And actually, I went further and tried to make a little flap that would cover the zipper since it didn't match the other zipper at all, but it didn't end up the way I wanted, so I scrapped that idea. So just ignore that. Now fold it up at the corner like so, right sides touching, measure and mark 2 inches in, and then sew along that mark. Repeat on all the corners, and then snip off the extra fabric. Mark the midpoint of the width of this piece at the top and the bottom. Take one of the body pieces and measure about 1.5 inches up from the bottom, and mark it across. I'm using a pencil because it's very light on this gray fabric, so it doesn't really show. At this point, mark the midpoint of the width of the body piece, and then from here I lightly marked straight up from that point, about as tall as the pocket piece was. This helps you line the pocket up correctly. Line the bottom of the pocket with the initial 1.5 inch mark you made along the bottom, right sides touching, and then sew it together. Flip back up and sew an overstitch, continuing around the whole pocket piece, folding the raw edges in as you go, making sure to stay lined up with that mark that you made on the body piece. After this was sewed on, I tried using the pocket piece and it was kind of difficult, so I ended up removing the pocket, changing the zipper, and foregoing the little flat bit. Unfortunately, since I was almost out of the vinyl fabric, I didn't have enough to recut a new top pocket piece, so it will forever have holes from the flap attempt. Oh well. It ended up working out pretty well, so I'm not too upset at it. Alright, now grab the other body piece, mark the midpoints at the top and the bottom, line up the D-ring piece, and sew it on facing in like so. Keep in mind that you're going to be sewing around this thing again, so keep the D-ring away from where the seam will be. That's a potential broken sewing machine needle right there. Also, when you sew these pieces down, make sure that they're spaced as far away from each other as they can be while still being on the flat bit of the D-ring. This part will make sense eventually, I promise. Place the long strap pieces on the side at the bottom facing inward, seam side down. Sew the longer zipper onto the long zipper edge pieces in the same way that you sewed the smaller zipper onto the pocket pieces. And you should have something that looks like this. Cut off the extra zipper from the ends and remove the teeth from the ends where you'll be sewing. I just used some wire cutters and pliers to do this. Now take the bottom piece and place it on the edge of the zipper, right sides touching. Sew, flip out, and overstitch. Repeat on the other side, making a loop. Now mark the midpoints at the top and the bottom. I matched the seams up on the sides and then marked where the zipper piece folds at the top and the bottom. This should make it super easy to find those midpoints. And now you're ready to sew this thing together all the way. Take one of the body pieces and match up the midpoint marks on the looped zipper piece with the right sides touching, and then sew together. Cut wedges out of the seam allowance of the curved section, flip it out, and overstitch the zipper section. I didn't overstitch around the bottom part. Ideally, I would go all the way around to do the zipper section and the bottom, but it's just too much of a hassle with my poor little sewing machine. Anyway, unzip the zipper, and then sew it onto the other body piece, making sure to match the top and bottom marks like before, and also making sure to keep all the straps and whatnot tucked inside before you sew. Again, cut out the wedges, flip it back out, and then overstitch. Take the thin strap piece and then thread it through the middle of the straight part of the D-ring with the seam side facing up about 1 inch. Bring the other end of the strap down like so, and then bring the little 1-inch piece up, sandwiching the other end in. Sew it together. I just did a few stitches to hold it together until I could put the stud through. Take one of the long straps, thread it through the D-ring on the curved part, and then sew it on. If you want, before sewing, you could put the backpack on to make sure the strap is as long or as short as you want. And then cut off the excess and then sew it down. Repeat for the other strap. Now for the studs. Take the leather hole punch and set it to the size of the studs that you have, and then punch holes on these straps through all of the layers. Thread a stud through, place the other end of the stud onto the other side, and follow the directions using the mini anvil, setting tool, and hammer to set the stud. Make sure to give it a few good whacks in order to really set the stud, while also avoiding hitting it at an angle, because then the stud will kind of twist while you're setting it and it'll look bad and it won't be as strong of a hold. And now the straps are secure. I saw this D-ring strap detail on a mini backpack a while ago and I really liked it, and I was determined to recreate it. I think I did a pretty decent job at it. So I ended up putting 4 more of these types of studs on the bottom of the backpack to help lay the seam the way that I wanted, and to also give that sort of look like it has those feet things that keep the bag from touching the floor. Since these are flat studs, it doesn't actually serve this purpose, but whatever. And now for the decorative studs. Really, you can do whatever kind of pattern you want. So at first, I decided to space them evenly in a line along the pocket piece. I did it on the seam that I previously sewed the kind of messed up flap thing in an attempt to kind of cover up the holes, but really it might just highlight that more. I don't know, whatever. So these skull studs are left over from a project from back in the day. I really like them, but I just haven't had any project to use them for, and this backpack was perfect. The only bad thing is that they're a bit too long to use with just one layer of vinyl. So ideally you would want the shaft part to stick out just barely through the vinyl length, I guess. And if it's too long, then it just doesn't set right and it can mess up and whatever. So one layer of vinyl was too thin for this. So because of this, I had to use extra bits of the vinyl. I doubled them up and then used that to help back the studs so that they would be properly secured in place. For the pocket, I just used an extra bit that I initially cut to be a strap, but it ended up too wide. So I cut it down to match the pocket, and then I punched holes into this piece, and then threaded the studs through the pocket and then through this extra strap piece. Then I added the backing of the stud, and then I hammered the studs in pretty much exactly how I did before. Actually, I lied. At first I attempted to use a different setting on the hole punch, which is meant to help set studs and rivets and whatnot. Spoiler alert, it didn't really work out that well, and I ended up going back and using the anvil, setting tool, and hammer to set them properly. And since these studs have a decorative element, the skull, I wanted to protect it from getting squished from the hammer. On the shoes I did a while back, some of the skulls have flat sides of their face because I didn't do this. I just used some scrap pieces of vinyl, laid that over the skull before using the anvil and setting tool, and it seemed to work pretty well. Then I decided to add some along the zipper of the bag, and again, punched holes evenly spaced and set the studs. For a lot of these studs, I did have the proper amount of vinyl fabric to set it properly because of the seam allowance that was folded in, but there were some bits where I had cut the wedge pieces from the curve where I did have to go back and add some smaller pieces of vinyl to help it set properly. I probably could have standed to do one more layer of vinyl with these guys because they kind of twist and stuff. They're not totally secure, I guess. They're secure enough where they won't be falling off, and they're not bent all weird and stuff, but I can spin them in place. So yeah, I probably could have done another layer of vinyl in between, but it's too late now. I figured I could probably just add a dab of E6000 or something to help keep them from spinning around. But yeah, when I was first going to make this bag, I wanted to make some tassels similar to the ones from the Bat backpack, but with materials I had on hand. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough vinyl left over, so I ended up just stealing the tassels from the Bat backpack to use on this one. And then my backpack was done. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love how this backpack turned out. I feel like I'm going to use it all the time. If you liked it too, then please leave a like, and if you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. I post art videos every Tuesday and DIY videos every Thursday. You can follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, and Twitch, and I'll leave the information to all of those down below. Thank you to my patrons for helping me produce this video. If you are interested in becoming a patron, I'll leave a link to mine right up here and you can go check it out. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next week.